All right, welcome back into the program. Excited to have a very special guest join us on this Hall of Fame weekend. And welcome back to Pirate Radio, Ann Holland. Great to see you, and look forward to this conversation so much. How are you doing, Ann?
I'm doing great. It's great to be with you guys too. I feel like I'm home.
It does. It feels like a great blast from the past right here. Look forward to catching so much to cover, so much to catch up. But just first, want to start off by just a congratulations, just a well deserved honor, and really for you and for Coach Holland to be honored and going into the East Carolina Athletics Hall of Fame. What does that mean for you and this weekend?
Um, it just reminds me of a lot of time that we had in Greenville and working with that program and all the sports hall of fames that I went to, and went around and spoke to all the people that were being in it and inducted in it and all their family members. And it's funny, when they called me, I thought, oh, now I won't have to talk to everybody or whatever. Now I can just sit there. But I look forward to talking with the other inductees. It's a great group, I think. And I think it's such an honor for our family to be included in that.
Well, it's a well deserved honor. The impact that you and Coach Holland had at East Carolina from 2004 to 2013 still lives on today, with your name being on the athletic complex and just so many things that were in dire straits at East Carolina at the time when the Hollands came. But the Hall of Fame is not anything new for you. It's just new for the East Carolina Hall of Fame. The Holland name has been in the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame so much. So, why is this one at East Carolina mean? What does it mean? Does it mean a little bit different?
And it does. The North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame was the one in the beginning that Terry and I both looked at each other and went, "What?" And it's because it is in North Carolina. And most people, when he was at Virginia, thought that he was raised in Virginia. And often we'd go to the beach at North Carolina and they said, "What are you doing here?" And I would go, and my girls would go, "What? I mean, this North Carolina is us." And so this one to me is even more so. It's us. I mean, Eastern North Carolina is where we were both raised, and it meant a lot to Terry. That's why he wanted to go back to East Carolina. He felt a real calling to go back and be among the people that were like him. And I feel the same way. It's an honor for him, and I'm excited that I'm around to be able to see it, and because these are our people and this is where we were raised.
Take me back to 2004. I know what it was like being here in Greenville. We had just started Pirate Radio in 2003 and was excited about that. But then John Thompson was the head football coach and replacing Steve Logan, and things didn't go so well. And things were kind of a disaster or a mess around East Carolina athletics and really kind of the university at the time. And the call was made, and there was rumblings that Terry Holland might be interested in being the athletic director here. And that was exciting news here in Greenville. What was it like on your side of the equation, and when y'all first started hearing about the athletic director position being open here? And how was the interest first received? And what was your story and background of how that all went down to you guys officially moving to Greenville back in 2004?
Well, this is one time I'm glad Terry's not here, because I'm going to tell you my side of the story. And he will not look at me funny like, you're not going to do that. And I will tell you, he had said to me at one point, because I thought we were retired, we were going to end up in Virginia and, be there forever. And I'd started doing more photography, and we were really enjoying, our days. And he said, "It's funny, East Carolina has come to me and asked me to help them find an athletic director." And I said, "Oh, well, that's great. Well, you should be able to do that. That would be something interesting." And he met, I guess he told me there was a committee. And so he met with them, and he came back and said, "Well, we're looking for somebody. I'm going to help them find somebody. You think of anybody that might, whatever." And I said, "No." And time went by. Later, I found out he told them no in the beginning. And then he was on the committee to help them find somebody. And finally, they kept saying, "Why are we looking for somebody? I think you can help us. Why don't you come and be the athletic director?" And he came home and said, "I think I'm going to take the job." And I said, "What job?" And he said, the East Carolina one. I said, no, that's the one you're helping them find somebody. And he said, I think I did. I think they think I can help them, and I think I can help them. And I said, Terry, there's no way you're going to go back Eastern North Carolina. He said, yeah, we are. Mom went there. Your mother went there. I felt like it was a calling to go help them because I can repay their scholarships or whatever they had. I can, do something in their name. And I said, I've been there before. That's why you went to Davidson and so we're going to go. And he said, yep, I think I can help them. And I said, okay, that's great. And then I thought, are you kidding me? And then it was like 5 days after that, I was in the car and we were moving. And so obviously he had, I don't know, they had been talking to him for a while and I didn't know it, which is that's the way he moved me to Virginia. He tricked me and said, this is what's going on and here's what we're going to do. And I did it. So that was another thing, but it was a great surprise. I must admit I was hesitant. I'd been away from Eastern North Carolina. And as you know, and most people who live there know, we're a different breed of cat. We're not like everybody else. And you have to know Eastern North Carolina. And I think we did. And I think that's why he did such a good job.
Were you hesitant more about coming to East Carolina, or were you more hesitant about Terry getting back into the workforce, being into the athletic director grind? What was holding Ann Holland up before she was excited about being back in the athletics game?
I think it was a little bit of both. I really, I felt like he's the type of person that he would go and he would have a plan of what he would like to accomplish for that place. And then when he would accomplish it, he would go do something else because he felt like that's all he could do there. He had done that at Davidson twice and at Virginia twice. And I didn't want him to leave any of those times, but I didn't ever have much of a say-so about that. I bought in before we got married. So I was going to do what he wanted us to do. And I was afraid of Eastern North Carolina, the people really. I'd been away. And then it didn't take me 5 minutes to feel like I was at home and I understood. And I'll never forget Dr. Ballard saying the first time we went, we hadn't moved yet. And the first time we went for him to start working was a football game. And it was the first football game. And Dr. Ballard said, how many tickets do you need? And Terry said, I don't need any tickets. And I looked up at him and thought, oh no, here we go with tickets again. Because he was never good about giving me a ticket. He'd give everybody else tickets, but not me. And I thought, here we go. And he said, no, I don't need one. And so we left and we were going in the car and we were going to the football game that day. And I said, how do you think you're going to get in? And he said, oh, we'll get in. And I thought, no, this is weird. And I watched him. I'd never seen him do this. It was a football game. He went to every tailgate in that. Do you know how many tailgates there are at a Pirate football game? Probably 5 million. And we went to every single one of them before the game started. And then when we got to the gate, they said, hey, Coach Holland, we're glad you're here. And we went right in. We didn't need a ticket. And I thought, oh, that's great. And so then we wandered around and then we stood in an area because he was all about standing. He never did sit down for any game. And we stood for the whole game. And then as we were leaving, I will tell you this, I probably shouldn't, but I said, Terry, the defensive guys they didn't know how to block. They weren't going from side to side when they're supposed to be doing. And he looked at me and he said, oh no, we're in more trouble than I thought if you understand what's going on.
Wow. And Holland saw the problems early on the field. You made some interesting points there, and I'll circle back to some. But you brought up the point. Why did Coach Holland? He never sat. I would always. You could see him in a tunnel at Minji's standing there watching basketball. He was always on the sideline. He always wanted to have his perspective of. Was that just the coach in him that he couldn't go sit and be still somewhere?
I think it was the coach in him. There was that, and also he's 6'8". I mean, he's very tall, and to sit in a one place for a long time is very difficult for him anyway. I mean, often at home he would be stretched out in front of the fireplace on the floor instead of in a chair, or, and every fancy chair he sat in, because we went to a lot of fancy places, usually they broke. I mean, so I think he could see things better and be where he needed to be. I don't think he did it to be seen, because he wasn't like that. But at Virginia, it was funny. You could hear the students in the crowd going, "Where's Waldo? Where's Waldo?" Because he would be in an end zone in a basketball game over in a corner, and then all of a sudden he wouldn't be there, and the students were going, "Where's Coach Holland? Where's Coach Holland?" And then he would appear, and you could hear him going, "There he is!" And they'd say it all together. It was like, and I said, "Terry, you got to quit moving around, because the students are, making cheers about." And he said, "What?" He had no idea. And a lot of it was superstition. If they were doing well, he would not move. And if they weren't, he'd move.
You mentioned going around to all the tailgates. I remember him coming to the Pirate Radio tailgate that day too. So he did go to all 5 million tailgates at Dowdy Ficklin that day. And that was one of the things that I think everybody liked about Coach Holland initially, was the approachability, and that he was able to talk to anybody in any lot. It didn't matter what your status was in the Pirate Nation. And I thought that was always really cool about both you and Coach Holland.
Yeah, we were definitely, I mean, that was he just enjoyed it. And he was so grateful that people came to the games. I mean, he was very grateful to see that. He didn't like the ticket business and all of that. And, always usually had people who would take care of that kind of thing for him. I think if he'd had his way, every athletic game would have been free for everybody. He was very much appreciative that the fans came. And I will tell you this, once he died, I got more letters. My family, my girls and I got more letters from the Pirate Nation than anywhere we've ever been. They did appreciate him, and he knew it. He loved them. I mean, he would go every single football game. He spoke to everybody he could at all those tailgates. He really loved the Eastern North Carolina people. So my reservation of all of that in the beginning ended up being something wonderful for him. And, I think he did. I mean, when he said to me, "I think I can help them," I think he did. I remember when we first got there, everybody would say things like, "Oh, I didn't get into Carolina, but," and I thought, I cannot believe people say that. And one day I was with them, and this young man came up and said, "I didn't get into Carolina, but," and he put his hands on his shoulders, and he said, "Don't ever say that again. This is the greatest university in the world. You've got to start saying, 'I am so glad I got into this school.'" And it wasn't long that no one said that to him anymore. I mean, he wanted people to feel proud that they were at East Carolina University. It's a great school. They do great things for great students. And he really wanted them to be proud. His mother was proud. My mother was unbelievable. She talked about it all the time. She told me stories about her kindergarten teacher, Miss Mamie, whatever her name was. I mean, we heard it all our lives, and he really felt that. And it was a great, great ending for him. It really was.
That's a very cool story about that young man there. I want to circle back to 2004. You're at the football game. Terry's recognized that you're pointing out that the Pirate defense is not very good. So kind of a two-part question. Like, at that moment, everybody's going to see potential and everybody's going to see problems. What's like the potential you guys saw in East Carolina, and what was the problems that you saw? I think I know where you're going to go with a few of this, but both of those things had to be going through your head and through his head of, gosh, there's a lot of untapped potential, but boy, there's certainly a lot of problems here right now. And I'll let you go with whichever way you want to start first.
I guess I will, everything I saw I was hesitant about everything. I wasn't really problem or not, me personally, because I was a wife, and being an athletic director's wife is probably one of the easiest roles in the world because I was a coach's wife. And I'm telling you, coaches' wives have a really hard time, and it's a hard, hard job. But being an AD's wife, it's almost like, well, it's not my team, it's not my boys, so okay, it's not my husband's fault. Terry felt the opposite. He felt like every coach was his responsibility. And if they didn't win, it was his fault. He took full responsibility for the entire department. He never put blame on anybody else. And I knew that's the way he was. So my first negatives, I guess, if you can call them negatives, was that day when he said to me, if you know what's going on, we're in trouble. And I thought, uh-oh, he's going to have to do, football is going to be awful or whatever. And then the next thing I knew, I walked downtown and there was a sign on the side of one of the buildings downtown that said something negative about Terry and, he shouldn't be here or something. I can't remember. And I thought, well, that's athletics. That's the way it is. And I thought, uh-oh, what's going to happen? And then I hear on the radio that he had to ask the coach to leave. And so he did. And I don't know if you remember, but once he was there and he was in charge, he stood as those football players came on the field. He stood right, almost they had to run over him to see him. And he, had his hand out, and some of the guys were very ugly and said really ugly, horrible things that, I've heard a lot in the sports world, but it was really bad. And I just looked at him and I was standing beside him, but it kept inching farther away because those guys were big. And I'm thinking somebody's going to hit him or something because they didn't like it that he had fired their coach. And I understand that. And he understood that. But he was standing there. And then at the end of the game, I was with him. I wouldn't leave him by himself. And I said, you're not going out there because we lost by a lot. He said, yes, I am. I'm going out there and I'm going to shake their hands. And he did with every one of those players. And I don't know what he did in the office afterwards with any of that, but I remember watching saying, he's amazing that he can actually do that and stand there and let them say those things to him. And then later we got letters from a couple of those players, maybe more than that. He got letters saying, what a great job he did and how they were sorry and things like that. And I remember thinking, okay, that's a lesson learned from me too. But some of the things that he did that I worried about him at home because he had to do things that he didn't want to do, but it had to be for the program. That was the only negative I saw was, when you're in a leadership position, you have to take responsibility and you have to be a leader or you shouldn't be there. And he was always a good one, even though he was very shy. As a young boy, he was very shy. And I thought he'll never be able to be a leader. And he was a really good leader. That was probably the only negative. Getting people out of jobs was the worst thing that I felt because I could relate to that because my husband was a coach. And that was, and then having to fire people that you love more than anything, like Ricky Stokes. That was part of his family, his blood, whatever. Those are always the only negatives I've seen. When I came to Greenville, I remember downtown was not real appealing, and I was surprised because it was a university town. But I saw how Don Edwards was trying to clean it up and get things going, and I had my little office down there eventually thinking, and now I look at it and think, yes, that's it. It looks so good now. So I felt like he did make an imprint. They were the negatives. The positives were we could look at it and see. I wanted to have an apartment on top of the building downtown so I could see that little river. And I just think it had everything going for it, everything. And the people we knew were good. They have good hearts. They're good people. They come from good stock. And I could see lots of possibilities.
Being a leader can be a lonely spot. And you mentioned Coach Holland that he kind of was an introvert in a way, but he had a great vision of what he always wanted to accomplish and accomplished a lot at all his stops. Especially we can obviously see the imprints around East Carolina. What was it like, Coach Holland at home? Because you often you hear with leaders and stuff they have to put so much stuff into their career, and he was in tough spots. I mean, being an AD or a coach or whatever, and a lot of times he may give his best to everybody all day, and then you got the rest. What was Coach Holland like? Peel back the curtain inside the home of Coach Holland, the husband, the father, the grandfather.
You know, he was always so into wherever he was at that moment. It's like when he moved to East Carolina, he didn't bring orange and blue here. When he moved to Davidson, he didn't bring purple and gold or orange and blue. It was Davidson, and then you had to get all the red and black. And then when I got rid of all that, then I had to do it again the next time we went. But, East Carolina. So when he went home and he was relaxed and he was wonderful. He didn't talk about work. I never went to a basketball practice. I never, I went to all the games and all the events because he made me. But I mean, I always said I wish he had been a ballet dancer or in the theater. I would have had a lot more fun going to, musicals and theater than I would have, wrestling matches or whatever. But I did it and I learned a lot. But he was at home. He's very witty. He loved to read. He would read National Geographic from cover to cover every time it came in. And then he would read books, and he loved to watch movies. He loved to go to plays. He loved musicals. And he was very cerebral, really, but he was also a prankster, and he told jokes and he was funny. And with the girls, he would be the horse, and both of them would get on him and ride forever and ever around everywhere we were on the floor. And he was great about compartmentalizing everything. He left his work at work. Now, there were many times he would have to go back, or when he was a basketball coach, he had practice sometimes at midnight because somebody else was on his court. I think that's why he went back to Virginia. He wanted to build that arena for them because they didn't have one. And when he came here, he wanted to see, he knew football could be good, but in the back of his heart, he really thought basketball could be really big here. He did think, and I did too. I kept saying they are dying for basketball to be big here. We couldn't quite get it done, but a lot of it had to do with a lot of different things. But we really thought basketball could be the thing here, and football ended up being. He got lucky and got some great coaches, and worked with them. And I mean, it's amazing how great and fun football was for me when I came here. I also learned to love baseball. I loved it. I mean, I never did before I came here. So, the positives for me personally were all positive. And the people that I got to know here, I mean, as you know, they're just good people. So he was good at home. And the girls will say that. He only took about 2 weeks off in the summer, but it was two special times.
And we're still waiting on basketball, so don't feel bad. It didn't have anything to do with the Hollands. It was there's still just this long mystique with basketball. But you did mention football, and that was really the ultimate fix of what needed to happen at East Carolina. When you reflect back now at bringing in Skip Holtz, and then the way he left was just odd, just because of the way college football happened, not because of why Skip didn't want to leave. He just things came open, and then replacing him with Ruffin McNeil. What stands out to you when you think of Skip Holtz and the Ruffin McNeil time during Terry's athletic director job?
Well, Skip Holtz made it fun. He was like he was a typical coach's son. And Terry always said coaches' sons were, ahead up of everybody else because there was so much you didn't have to explain to them. Even as players, he would say that. And I don't think when Terry interviewed Skip, I know we went to we were in Charlotte. I think that's where he interviewed him. And Skip had just gotten fired by his dad at South Carolina. And so nationally, he did not have a great name at that point, because if your dad fires you, something's really bad wrong. And Terry said, I'm gonna go interview him. I know Coach Holtz, and I know I've met Skip, and I'm gonna go meet him. And I said, okay, that's great. So they went to whatever. And it wasn't 30 minutes or so. And Terry came out and he said, I'm hiring him. He said, he's the greatest. He's the best. And he said, he's exactly what we need. He knows all the stuff. He's been there. And he didn't get a great thing. I don't think that was received real well at first, but then once Skip got here and everybody got to know him, oh my gosh. I mean, they loved him and he was wonderful. But Terry, I remember Skip saying that Terry was the best athletic director a coach can have because he understood coaches. And so he would say to him, what do you need? And then Skip would say, I need this, and he would get it, or he would find a way to get it, or he would figure it out, because, I think that's what you have to have is somebody who understands a coach and figures out what the school can do. And then you work together to now it has to be a coach too that understands the whole program. And there are few of those because they only are thinking about what they have to do. And I understand that, and I think Terry kept Skip here a couple of years longer than I think maybe Skip turned down jobs that Terry thought that he should stay and help us a little bit longer. But that job that came up and was perfect for him. It was in the area. It was in where he's, I don't know exactly what I've talked to Jennifer. I know her side, my side, but that's too bad that the South Florida thing didn't end up being longer than it was. But he was kind of ready to go, and it was good. And then the hire of Ruffin was, Terry did that on his own, even though I think a lot of people wanted to go in another direction. But he felt really strong about Ruffin, and he was exactly what we needed. He was great here, and it was his school. He played for. I mean, it couldn't have been any better, and he was on his way up. Like every year, he won more than he did the year before. So did Skip, which is interesting when you look back at their records the whole time they were here. That was really interesting. But those were great times, and I just remember the two characters themselves. Now, obviously, I love the wives, but they were two characters that you're lucky in your life if you ever had a hug from Ruffin McNeil, or, just be around Skip for 10 minutes, and you're a lucky person.
Very, very true. Both one of the best parts of East Carolina athletic. I mean, a couple of the guys that are going in the Hall of Fame this weekend. Really, three of the players were right there during that era. Which makes, I think, this upcoming weekend so exciting. When you look back now, what do you think you are the most proud of your time here at East Carolina, and what do you think would Coach Holland's be the same, or would y'all have different of high points of what would be the things you're most proud of?
I'm not sure what he would say. Well, I do. When I interviewed him for my radio show, I asked him that. I can't remember what he said, but it was all about East Carolina. But what I would say about him is what he tried to do everywhere, but he really did here, was he left this place in better shape than when he got here. And that's what he tried to do everywhere. Even when he was in high school, he would say, well, let's just make it better than it was when we got here. He's always said that. We'd be going to the state fair or something, and I'd say, why are we staying so long or something? He said, we're going to make that restaurant over there better than it was when we got here. Yeah, that was his thing. And he would say that to the girls, let's just make it better than it was when we came in. I mean, and he did that here. And that's what I would say. What he would say, I think, is that he just loved the people. He really, and they loved him. I mean, it was so obvious, the fan base, because, in athletics, 50%, it's like ministers, 50% like you and 50 don't. Well, this fan base when we were out in the fields or in the basketball or in the volleyball, I mean, the fans really appreciated him, and he was very grateful. And I think that was the highlight, really, in both of us.
And we could talk for hours. I know there's so many stories I'd love to dial into. Maybe we'll get you back and get your perspective after you come back to Greenville on the Hall of Fame weekend and just tell some more behind the scenes stories and stuff. But before we wrap up, how's Ann Holland? Give us an Ann Holland and family update of how you're doing and how your daughters and the grandkids and everybody are doing.
Well, I am much better today than I was 2 weeks ago. I've gotten better. Terry's, this February, he will have been gone for 3 years, which to me, it seems like yesterday. But the first 2 years, I really didn't do very well. We had gone together. First time we were together, we went to putt-putt thing, and I was 12 and he was 15. And so I've known him all my life. And then all of a sudden, I don't have him anymore. And I'd had him forever. And I really struggled, but I kept listening to his words and thinking about what he would do. And, I slowly but surely, started going out and doing things a little bit better. And my girls were really good. They, of course, worship their dad, and they both have been grieving in their own way. And I think that's hard for me too, because I'm the mother and I'm grieving, and I think they should feel sorrier for me than whatever. And it doesn't work like that. They're grieving just as much as I am. But they've been really helpful. And my grandchildren, we have 2 boys, Holland and Shark, and then we have a granddaughter, Eliza Gray. And you hear grandmothers say that their lives are their grandchildren. I try not to be around them, because when I am, I want to tell them what to do. And I know I can't do that. It's a whole different world, and they think differently. Their music's different, even though I love it. It's, I go, oh my God, couldn't they say something else other than that? I mean, that kind of thing. But Holland let me teach him 3 years of Latin, and Shark only got 1. Liza Gray, I think I've had 1 week, but that was fun for me. So the grandchildren have been really, really great to me. They're special people, and it's because those 2 girls, I mean, they had great kids, and that's neat. And I think they're passing on a lot of that. My family has been, my rock, as most people can say. And I'm good. I come back to East Carolina every now and then while I'm still, okay to drive. I'm trying to make as many trips back as I can. I spend half my time at Shenandoah Gravitz with JR, so that can make anybody happy. And then, I check in with Cliff every now and then. So, and I see Jeff and Ed Glenn. I mean, that family is just special. And Kathy Gavigan, when she lost her husband, it was like Terry all over again. And so I really have had a hard time with that. But I'm doing well, and I'm better than I was yesterday.
Well, Ann, we're excited that you were able to spend some time with us today, and we're so happy that you guys are going to be honored this weekend. I know it's going to be a special time, and to have you back in Greenville, and I know you and your family can soak it in, and there's going to be just a ton of people that want to hug your neck and see your kids and see your family, and just remember, I mean, the fingerprints are all over the place of Ann and Terry Holland all over East Carolina, and we'll be here forever. And just a lot of change that great change that you guys were able to make from 2004 to 2013. And then it's just hard to believe that it's been that long that you guys have departed East Carolina. But we look forward to seeing you this weekend, and wish you all the best. And thank you for spending some time with us today.
Well, thanks. And it's always good to see you. And I can't believe your kids are so old.
I know it just means we're all getting old, so
I
which is a good thing. So, but we look forward to seeing you this weekend, and we definitely have to have you back on to catch up again. And you're always welcome here at Pirate Radio whenever you come into Greenville. You got to stick your head in here and keep us straight. We always the Ann Holland show was one of the most. That was like pre-podcast, but you were just doing radio shows with us back then. But that was a very special time here at Pirate Radio. You had a ton of great guests, and just one of the cool things I reflect back on and think about that we accomplished here at Pirate Radio and the show. And you were a great interviewer and able to get a lot of great stories out of good people.
Well, I learned a lot from you guys, and I really loved it. Watching, I mean, that was like a little home away from home for me too. And Terry enjoyed them too. I would come home and say, "What questions would you ask so and so?" And he would say some off the wall thing, and I would say, "I can't ask that." He said, "Try it." And every now and then I would. He was really funny. He was really witty. He really was. And it's nice to share stories about him, and it's nice that some of you still remember him.
Absolutely. Never forgotten. And thanks for your time, and we'll see you this weekend. God bless.
Okay. I look forward to it.